The money that goes and due support provides for the advocacy and the public awareness that I've described. And that public awareness and advocacy is going to save libraries, and it's going to save jobs. I should also note that for only 25 cents a day, you can be my boss. So. The last challenge, and the toughest challenge of all, is can libraries even survive? Given the forces against us, officials who only care about reducing taxes, those who hate what libraries represent, and there are people like that. Or how about gurus who tell us to think outside the box? I've often noted that people who talked about libraries without walls, invariably the first step was to create a library without money. Or how about those who say that libraries are no longer needed now that we have the internet? I think it's pretty easy, and the mayor talked about that, it's pretty easy to get discouraged. All I can say is, don't believe them. A couple of years ago, it was daring to predict the demise of the library with the advent of the internet. What's the reality? Our libraries are busier than ever and more heavily used than ever. We've discovered that sitting at home in front of a computer hasn't reduced library use because people come to libraries for a lot more than any computer can provide. They come for a sense of community, to be inspired by the library, for the social interaction, to learn together, and once in a while to get help and advice from those wonderful professionals, the only people with an advanced degree that you can consult with for free, librarians. The best definition I've seen of a library is an institution by which a community creates a collective collection of resources for shared use. I would argue that it is the best bang for the buck. It is Ben Franklin's best invention, even better than the kite and the key thing, which never panned out, or even the stove. And I would argue that no matter what the medium, no matter what the technology and how they change, this simple invention will work just as well. I do think that our future is very bright indeed. I'm going to conclude with a little story about the Lexington Public Library. And Lexington, this is one of my favorite stories. Lexington is an unusual town. You know, this is the place where the local citizens stood up to the British and, fired on them. And it really wasn't because they were, had any lofty ideals. They're just cranky. And, they would have shot at anybody who showed up that morning. The Lexington Public Library has a board of trustees that has 26 members. And that's just the current number of members, because under the bylaws of the library, anyone who is the minister of an established congregation is by definition on the board of trustees. So they could have 35 trustees at some point, and we'll probably be the first with a Buddhist monk as a trustee. So it's a very, very challenging community, as you can probably guess. It has the largest number of Nobel Prize winners of any community in the United States as residents and library users. The Lexington Library had a library that was built at the turn of the century called the Cary Library. And the director, who is a very good friend, was trying to, leading an effort to get the library expanded because it was just terribly inadequate. And they were going to expand next to the library. And unfortunately, a citizens group organized against the expansion of the library. And it was led by, of all people, the owner of the funeral home, which was next door to the library. And I'm not sure what the connection is. I never could figure that out, disturbing the patrons or something like that. But in any event, there was a lot of opposition, how this was just going to ruin the character of the town, and it was too much money to spend, and et cetera, et cetera. And then one of those things happened that convinces you that the good Lord, in fact, loves librarians. A book was brought in to the circulation desk, and that book had been checked out in 1881. And you know how it is. You take a book out, you forget to bring it back, you don't want to pay, yeah, then you die, you know, it's just, well, in any event. So this book was returned to the circ desk, and lo and behold, in the book was a letter from Mr. Carey. And in the letter, handwritten in, you know, a quill ink or whatever they used in 1881, Mr. Carey complained about the people that were opposed to the building of the initial library and how backward they were and how they just weren't forward thinking and didn't understand how this was going to benefit the community. So, you know, and I don't think they ever had a handwriting expert check the letter, but the fact is they printed it on the front page of the local newspaper, and the opposition sort of ended up folding, and the new library was built. It's a beautiful library and in fact is a wonderful asset to the community. I think that what this illustrates is things, we may think of the good old days as having been the good old days. People had to work hard and to struggle to make the libraries come into existence that we currently work in and that we currently direct, and whose fate we hold in our hands. The point is clear. We hold the future. We did not create these libraries. They created us. But we are the ones who will create the next generation of libraries. Thank you so much for letting me join you today. I do look forward to working with you to accomplish great things.